All right, so last night we got the official final results from this Georgia runoff taking place here in my home state, and we have a winner that has been declared. It is radical liberal Raphael Warnock, as Kelly Loeffler used to call him. So here from the New York Times, they say Georgia U.S. Senate runoff election results. We got Raphael Warnock clocking in here with about 1.8 million votes. We have 95% of the vote total in. He's sitting at around 51.4%. And then we have Herschel Walker down here at 1.719 million for about 48.6%. So, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it honestly was relatively close. He lost by about 100,000 votes. And there's a lot to say in terms of why Herschel Walker ended up losing this election. I think that if Republicans had just run some like run-of-the-mill establishment candidate or something similar in the vein to like Brian Kemp or something like that, they probably would have won this election. But that sort of ties into the broader reason why Democrats were actually able to successfully hold on to the Senate, and not only hold on to the Senate, but now with this result, actually expanding their Senate majority to now be a 51-49 split. And it's basically the same reason, which is that Donald Trump's candidates, whether it's Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz, Doug Mastriano, a bunch of other candidates around the country, Kerry Lake as well. All of these candidates were just straight up dog shit. Okay, there's, obviously some differences between them. Dr. Oz had his own specific failures related to him being a terrible quality candidate. Herschel Walker specifically, I mean, all of the baggage that came with Herschel Walker throughout this campaign, I literally do not even think that I've ever seen a political candidate have as much baggage as Herschel Walker did. Okay, and so the fact that it was even this close is honestly fucking wild, just in terms of like how Georgia voters were interpreting this election. I mean, obviously Raphael Warnock, he's not perfect, but relative to many other corporate Democrats, he's pretty good, right? I mean, this is not a guy who's, falling into the same vein as like Joe Manchin and, utilizing the fact that he comes from a relatively more conservative state to justify opposing any sort of left-wing policy. This is a guy who I honestly think, especially if you look at some of his past track record and some of the statements that he has had on issues like socialism when he was a reverend, this is a guy who definitely has the potential to be pretty based, honestly, and I don't think that he would be somebody that would be aggressively fighting against a lot of the proposals that have been put forward, number one, by the Biden administration, or even somebody that, in the future potentially could be significantly to the left of Joe Biden. So he's a relatively better Democrat, in my opinion. And honestly, I'm happy that he won this election. I did vote for him, and, call me a Democratic Party shill or whatever the fuck. But, anything that I could do to keep Herschel Walker out of office, I think is worth it. Didn't take much time out of my day. Not something that I'm that heavily invested in, but these are the final results, right? And so again, I mean, Herschel Walker as an individual candidate, so many different reasons we could get into in terms of why he was a horrible candidate. I got a take here from his son, Christian Walker, that we're going to get to here in a second. But first, let's just go ahead and jump into a little bit of his concession speech where, thankfully he's not trying to pull a Donald Trump and claim that there was some widespread fraud or rigging or anything like that. It looks like he's, relative, to his own potential for being gracious in this. It seems like he is bowing out of this gracefully to some extent. So let's just go ahead and jump into a little bit of this clip here.
And also I'm going to acknowledge my wife, Julie, because she's with me and she's been through a tough time.
Yeah, if we know anything about the testimony from previous Herschel Walker girlfriends and wives, yeah, I would say that his, his wife is probably going through it for a multitude of different reasons, to say the least.
But I want to say that I want to thank all of you as well, because we've had a tough journey, have we not? But one of the things I said is when they called the race, I said the numbers doesn't look like they're going to add up. But one of the things I want to tell all of you is you never stop dreaming. I don't want any of you to stop dreaming. I don't want any of you to stop believing in America. I want you to believe in America and continue to believe in the Constitution and believe in our elected officials most of all. Continue to pray for them, because all the prayers you've given me, I felt those prayers. I want to thank all my team as well, Team Herschel, because they put up with a lot.
Yeah, they did put up with a lot, man. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off there. But, I mean, yeah, his campaign did deal with a lot because, number one, he was basically just lying to them repeatedly throughout this campaign. He was lying to his own campaign about some of these scandals that were coming out and, not giving them the full scope of what they were going to have to deal with some of these stories. So I got to take here from Herschel Walker's son that's just sort of summarizing some of the major scandals that he was up against during this election. So he says, "Don't beat women, hold guns guns to people's heads, fund abortions, then pretend that you're pro-life, stalk cheerleaders, leave your multiple minor children alone to chase more fame, lie, say stupid crap, and then make a fool of your family, and then maybe you can win a Senate seat. Okay, so this is a take from Christian Walker, obviously, in the waning hours of his campaign over the last couple of weeks and months. Christian Walker made a sharp turn against his dad. He was coming out making public statements and videos, basically trying to say that Herschel Walker was violent towards him and his mother, and again, just pointing out all of the hypocrisy surrounding his, claims to being a pro-life Christian guy. Meanwhile, he's, going around and paying for abortions from multiple different women that have alleged that, and basically just a complete fucking hypocrite when it comes to that issue. And then on top of that, the history of domestic violence. On top of that, the history of his own mental illness, which, obviously there's a lot going on there. He's claimed that he has basically a multiple personality disorder or something in that vein, and that this has led him to almost kill people in the past, as Christian Walker points out here, holding guns to people's heads. I mean, this guy was absolutely erratic, to say the least, and definitely would not have made for a good or stable senator. And on top of that, I mean, it's not just all of this baggage, it's also the fact that, this guy couldn't string together a coherent sentence to save his life, right? And it's not just about, the way that he, the way that he speaks or his, tone or anything like that. It's that when you listen to him speak about some specific issue, he would just jump from thing to thing to thing, and you can't even make sense of whatever the fuck he's saying. Okay, it was just right-wing buzzword here, Trump-backed statement here, and pushing this idea that he's some wholesome family man. While, as Christian Walker is pointing out here, this is a guy, Herschel Walker, who has spent a significant deal of time criticizing the black community for absent fathers and things like that. And meanwhile, he has multiple children who he was not a father to. So I mean, there's just so many different contradictions that came along with this campaign. So much baggage. The fact that he, is not able to actually go out there and even explain his policy agenda in a coherent way. And on top of that, obviously him being tied to Donald Trump, that had its own baggage. And there was sort of this inter-party split that was happening within the state of Georgia in the Republican Party between more of the Brian Kemps and the Brad Raffenspergers versus somebody who is an aggressively pro-Trump candidate like Herschel Walker. So all of these different things added up to the end result that we had of him ending up losing this. Now, there were so many other funny things that happened during this campaign, especially in regards to Trump, who again was the guy who was aggressively trying to push Herschel Walker to run in the first place. I mean, we had this story that dropped just a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so here from The Independent, they say Trump accused of stealing from Herschel Walker campaign with deceptive fundraising emails. Okay, this was absolutely fucking hilarious, all right? This is Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate, and this goes across the board for all of the candidates that Donald Trump hand-picked during the midterm elections, okay? Basically, he was fundraising off of their names. He was refusing to use any of the money that he has amassed to actually back his candidates and sort of just leaving them financially hanging out to dry. But not only that, but he launched multiple fundraisers, in this case specifically for Herschel Walker, where he would send out these massive email blasts to his huge list of people who are on his email list, and he would send out these email blasts saying we need to help Herschel Walker win in Georgia, donate money here and we'll help his campaign. And then you look at the specific details within where this money is actually going and what the breakup is, and it was 90% of it was going straight to Donald Trump, and only 10% of it, or it might have even been less than that, was actually going to the Herschel Walker campaign. So it's Trump picked terrible fucking candidates. They flopped on the campaign trail, had all of these different, things that were piling up in terms of baggage, no ability to actually go and rally a broad coalition of people, so much controversy surrounding them, and then on top of that, you didn't even financially back them. What do you expect is going to be the outcome, if that's the set of circumstances that these people are working with? Now, again, I don't even think that this is anything that Democrats did right during these midterms. I think there were many different flaws with their strategies overall, the failures of, policies that they should have gotten passed and they didn't get passed. This was really just more of how weak Donald Trump's handpicked candidates were than it was about Democrats having a super strong midterm showing, right? So, you had that aspect of it. And now I want to get into basically just some coping and seething from some conservatives. In this case, we have Laura Ingraham, who was absolutely distraught at the fact that Herschel Walker did not manage to pull this out. So let's just go ahead and watch this clip here.
Was on the part of the Democrats. I felt it, you felt it, but we don't change anything. We have the same people in place in leadership, same people in place apparently at the RNC. Perhaps that's not changing. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I'm pissed tonight, frankly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really offensive.
I'm mad.
For Republican voters, for Republican donors who have put
Over again. I'm pissed tonight, frankly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really offensive.
I'm mad.
For Republican vote.
She's mad. She's big mad. Okay, so Laura Ingraham, coping and seething, not having a great night here. And, again, I mean, I think it's somewhat of like a silver lining that they're not coming out and claiming election fraud in this and that they are recognizing that he did, in fact, lose. But, I mean, again, what did you expect? She's kind of right there to an extent because she's saying, what happened with the RNC? What happened with, all of these financing arms of the Republican Party? You have this motherfucker, Rick Scott, who's basically in charge of the Senate campaign funding for all of these different elections. There were allegations of like fraud that he was engaging in and just complete mismanagement of their funds, not, great timing in terms of when he was coming out to support different candidates, throwing money at candidates that had no chance of winning and not supporting candidates until the last minute that actually did have a chance of winning. It's a complete clusterfuck, okay? And it's not surprising given the people that they have in these leadership positions. So maybe, this could potentially lead to some sort of shakeups within the Republican Party. But honestly, if that does end up happening in terms of like their leadership battles, right? You still have Mitch McConnell, you still have Kevin McCarthy, you still have Rick Scott, all of these people in key positions within the Republican Party. Number one, I think it's, a massive stretch to say that they are going to be successfully dethroned. Maybe Kevin McCarthy has the best chance of being dethroned. But who are you going to replace them with? Because, if you're going to oust more of the establishment Republicans in favor of somebody new coming in and controlling the party, they're much more likely to be replaced by some of the most deranged aspects within the Republican Party, right? The much more aggressively pro-Trump wing of the party. And that's not going to be a better situation. So it's like, what is your actual end goal here? What is the direction that you think would actually be positive or beneficial for the future of the Republican Party if it's not with the MAGA wing of the party and it's also not with the establishment neocon wing of the party? I mean, what the fuck is going on here, right? No strategy whatsoever that is actually going to have some sort of like long-term stability or success for the Republican Party. And honestly, the split that's happening right now between the establishment wing, between the Trump wing, the split that's happening between DeSantis supporters and Trump supporters, so much infighting that has been going on within the Republican Party. It's going to be fucking hilarious to watch this over the next year or so, especially as we heat up towards the 2024 Republican primary for the presidency. And so this is all going to be super entertaining. There you have it. Raphael Warnock successfully defeats Herschel Walker in this election. It was relatively close, but just because of all of the candidate quality issues, because of all of those, other tangential aspects of this race that we talked about, he ended up flopping at the end of the day. So, big W to Raphael Warnock. Hopefully he continues in the same vein that he has been in being a relatively good Democrat. Obviously, you're comparing that to Democrats that are absolute dog shit, but, credit to Raphael Warnock. He's a decent guy. He's a decent candidate. And I'll just leave you guys off with this clip here back from The Apprentice when Herschel Walker was actually on the show.
I love you. Yes. I am not a gay man, and I love you, Herschel. Yes, Herschel, you're fired.
Thank you.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying